tell you what, Sister Sandy picked that song, Amazing Grace. I halfway wish I'd have just went and spoke on that song this morning. You know, that line that says, when we've been there 10,000 years. When we stop and think about what's waiting and how long it's going to be, it makes the day-to-day struggles that we go through easier to put in perspective. But I'm going to be speaking on something else this morning. A man once said, if you control your tongue, you can control half of your problems in one time. The quieter you become, the more you hear. True wealth is measured in peace, not gold. And happiness is not found, it's created in small daily choices. And the Bible speaks to us about when we should be quiet. In Deuteronomy it tells us, if you haven't verified the story, don't talk about it. In Proverbs, if you don't have all the facts, just stay silent. Again in Proverbs, if the issue is none of your business, leave it alone. Again in Proverbs, if you're tempted to joke about sin, we see that a lot. People make jokes about things that aren't right. And again in Proverbs, if you would be ashamed of your words later, if your words will damage someone else's reputation, if your words will damage a friendship, and all those, all so far, that's all been, other than Deuteronomy, that's all been in Proverbs. In 1 Corinthians 8:11, if your words will offend a weaker brother, and if you can't speak without yelling. You know, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of times it's a struggle for me not to say something. Because if I say something, I won't be able to quit. So I just have to zip it. The title of what I had is, sometimes we need to learn to just hush. We know that there's tremendous power in the tongue, and that's in Proverbs 18:21. And I'm not very organized this morning. If someone beats me to it, go ahead and read it. But as quick as you get there, you'll know exactly which verse it is. We've heard it 100 times. Proverbs 18:21. Life and death are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. And that is in pretty black and white. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. We can speak blessings or curses. We can build up or tear down. We can edify or defile. And we see that on a regular basis. All you got to do is turn the news on, and we see how the power of speech is used in the wrong manner. There, in fact, is so much power in words that is what brought creation into existence.
Yes.
And that actually is kind of something to wrap your mind around. God spoke it into being. And that, if you sit there and just think about what he started with and what he created just with the power of his voice. You know, the thing is sometimes we also speak things into being.
Yes, we do. More than we know.
We speak joy into somebody, or we speak sorrow into somebody. And all too often we speak a small problem into a major issue. And I've seen that at work over and over and over, where someone takes something that really ain't that big a deal, and by the time they're done, somebody's getting fired over it. And you know, we can speak blessings and joy and love into somebody's life, or we can make them feel like they've just been beat down, worthless. And we need to be real conscious of how we use our voice. As Christians, we need to understand and realize that there's a time to speak and a time to be quiet. And as the saying goes, just because it's true doesn't mean you have to say it. Now, we all know that when someone asks you a direct question and there's no sidestepping it, sometimes you have to speak the uncomfortable truth.
Yes.
I'm not saying that you lie by omission or lie by making the person think that you're going along with what they're saying. But at the same time, there's things that happen that sometimes we're better off just to keep our mouth shut, and it's not really our place.
What I do is when somebody says, "Can I ask you something?" I say, "I'm going to tell you the truth." So they know if they want the truth, they've got it. If they don't want to hear the truth, then they don't bother to ask.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But we know people that see something happen and they go out of their way to go and call it out,
Sure.
when at times it could be left.
Yes.
But at the same time, we do understand there is a time to confront
Yes.
things and to speak a very uncomfortable truth. You know, the thing was, is Jesus was accused of many, many things that had absolutely no basis.
Right.
And a lot of the times, he never answered them. Our problem is we think we need to set the record straight, and we need to defend ourselves, and how dare they talk about me like that. And there's a saying I heard one time that the people that matter will understand, and the people that don't understand don't matter. And a lot of times, if we would keep that, we would realize that we don't always have to set the record straight. You know personally if you did anything that you need to apologize for. And the thing is when you go to trying to set the record straight, a lot of times you get sucked into an argument that has no good outcome. It's easy to say things that should have been left unsaid when we feel belittled or wronged or misused. In Proverbs 15:1, a soft answer turneth away wrath.
Yes.
I think, let's see.
Yeah. The grievous words stir up anger.
Yep. And for some reason, I don't understand why my Bible app does it, but it always likes to divert to another translation. It's only got like 15 translations, and it will not stay on King James for love nor money. But some of the translations I do like. This one is, a gentle answer turneth away wrath, but a harsh word stirreth up anger. Which is, how many times have you seen that when you see a parent speaking to a kid and the kid can't just, okay. Instead, they want to flare back, and then next thing you know, you have You have an argument. Something that could have just been left lie a little bit, instead becomes a big situation. It is far easier to prevent anger than to de-escalate a situation. The time to put out a fire is when it's small, and we need to remember which container we got the gasoline in. You know, we see that. We see that a lot of times when, if you just took a beat and thought about it, it'll never become an issue. But instead, that one word is said, and then the person that's already a little stirred up becomes very stirred up, and it just goes up like a bonfire. And just like a fire can flare up and kill or maim, as we've heard about the story, you know, the family that was killed in the fire. And just like that, a situation that is not handled correctly can do the exact same thing. A lot of times, if we'd have just paused for a second, the fire went out on its own. And de-escalation is not easy. They actually teach classes on it. There's all kinds of studies, and now they have teachers and police officers, law enforcement, anybody in position, they have them training how to bring a situation down. De-escalation is not always easy, but if you'll slow down, think about what you're going to say, show empathy, and don't be quick to judge. The thing is showing empathy doesn't mean that you're saying the person's right. It's you're saying, I understand where you're coming from. And a lot of times, we just want to be heard. We just want somebody to understand where we're coming from. And the thing is I don't know if this is 100% true. You can always find a study to say whatever you want it to say. And as many studies as there is out there must be some busy people in this world doing studies. And they ain't never asked me nothing.
You know, Josh said that most people would stop and think about what they're going to say before they say it. A lot of things will never get said. So then you say basic things before you talk.
They say that body language is just as important as the words that come out of your mouth. In face-to-face discussions, according to experts, 80 to 90% of your communication is your body language.
Your face. A lot of that's your face.
They say your face,
Yes.
how your eyebrows,
Yes.
the look in your eye, the set of your jaw,
Yeah.
whether your shoulders are squared, whether you're leaning forward, you know, how your hands are. And they say it,
Your mouth,
and there is
yeah.
an entire study
Sure.
on, they will actually study speakers while they're speaking to figure out if they're lying or not, or if they're upset about what they're having to admit to, and it's actually, some of it I think is kind of hokey, but there's some of it that I think there's a lot of truth to. And one thing to remember is adjust your volume when you're talking to people. Sometimes we like to get loud to get our point across. For me, generally, I have to adjust my volume so people can hear me. And be mindful of the impact of your words. And I believe that is in James 3, 5, and 6. And once again, I'm not, if I go through and hit my translation, it'll take me completely back out and I gotta start all over. But this isn't watering down the Bible in any way in this translation. It's talking about we put bits in the mouths of horses to make them obey, and we can guide the whole animal. And the ships, though they are so large and driven by strong winds, they're steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot is inclined. In the same way, the tongue is a small part of the body, but boasts of great things. Consider how small a spark sets a great forest ablaze. The tongue is also a fire. A world of wickedness among the parts of the body. It pollutes the whole person and sets the course of his life on fire. How many times do we see that happen? And we are to speak with purpose and relevant and truthful and kindliness. And I was going down over through a bunch of this, and I was thinking, how many times have I broken every one of these deals just in the past week or the past 2 weeks? Speaking with purpose, speaking things that are relevant to the situation, being truthful, 100% truthful, and 100% kind. In Proverbs 10 and 19, he who restrains his lips is wise. You know, it's simple math. The more words that come out of our mouth, the more apt some of the things that are said should have been unsaid, and you're going to regret later. And that's just, I look back at stuff I've said in the past and think, man, if I could take that back. But once it comes out, it's out. And it's important to remember that God will hold us accountable for the words that we say. And our words have a enormously disproportionate impact for the few words and the split second it says to say them. For the good or for the bad. You know, I'm sure we can all remember a time when you didn't know how life could get any worse, and somebody comes up and says something, and it just, you can feel the light in your chest. You just feel a glow, and you think, you know what, I ain't by myself. There's times when you're a kid, and, you know, I've talked about this a bunch. Candace and I both have coached over the years a lot of different kids out of a lot of different situations. Honestly, some of them, once you get to know the kid and know the home they come from, when practice is done, you hate to let them go back. You just as soon just take them home with you. But that one little boy, I worked with him, and he was very, very insecure. And I was always trying to encourage him. I wasn't trying to lie to him. I wasn't trying to swell his head up, but I was trying to encourage the kid. And you could see him come around. And he turned into a phenomenal little player that when you told him that you needed him to do something, he'd do it or die trying. And I come up to him, and it was a tight game. We didn't like to lose very much, and it was a rough game. And that kid pulled through for me, and we won. And I went over to him, and I gave him a big old hug, and I said, hey, you have turned into an incredible player. And he just stood there and stared at me. And then he started crying, he walked away, and I thought, what in the world have I done? Well, he come back and told me, he said, nobody's ever told me that before. He said, nobody's ever told me that I was good. Nobody ever told me that they needed me. Nobody ever told me that they were counting on me. And that was out of a 10-year-old kid. And you think about that, that is sad.
Yes, it is.
That is sad. There's another young man in town I was telling somebody, I said, it kind of makes you start feeling old when you see people showing up to their kids' practice and games that I used to coach. But that one boy, I'm not going to name names, he's a great young man, as far as I can tell. And we sat down and had a long talk after he had moved on to other things. And he said, you gave me confidence in myself. And he comes from a good family. But just me encouraging him allowed him to realize what he actually had inside. And that's what we do for people.
Yes.
And that boy now date myself, but he's probably 27. And this started when he was 5 or 6. I don't remember. Sometimes it runs together, but he was very young. But the things I told him 20-some years ago, he still remembers to this day. There's things that we say into people's lives, and the bad thing is,
into them, yes.
the bad thing is in some ways the hurts stick out worse.
Yes, yes.
I'm trying to get down through here. But you know, the thing is, it just takes a split second to cut somebody to the bone. And the thing is our words need to be consistent with our Christian testimony and our walk. Would you say those words if you truly love that person? Which leads to the discussion about gossip. You know, we all know it's wrong. And we all know it's mighty easy to slip into, and here you are gossiping and not even realizing you're doing it. And everybody likes to say that it's old women that like to gossip. I hate to tell you, everybody likes to gossip. I know some guys that like to gossip. You go to the tire shop for men or the beauty salon for the women, it don't matter. That's the same stuff gets talked about. The definition of gossip was a little bit different than what I thought it was going to be when I pulled it up. And I pulled it up, I didn't like the first definition, so I went and found another one, and guess what, it was the same. I did it 4 different times, and it was all close enough. And I thought, well, I guess I have to adjust my opinion of gossip. Is casual or unrestrained conversation about another, typically involving details that are not proven to be true. I was like, well, I didn't actually think it was casual conversation. I thought it was more the idea of being malicious.
Yeah.
But then when they start breaking it down, then you get into the malicious part of it. It stirs up conflict and separates close friends. Harms reputations by spreading misinformation and half-truths. And when you get into that, you realize that if you're gossiping, you're walking right next door to lying. They said that gossip is backbiting and tale-bearing's first cousin.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing is how many people have we seen's reputation destroyed by people walking around scattering misinformation, half-truths, sometimes intentionally, sometimes because they don't care enough to research it, sometimes, you know, we have to be very careful what we say about others.
Yes, we do.
There is a place for saying that, hey, this person is wrong. Hey, this person is preaching stuff that doesn't need to be listened to. This person is promoting things that we have no business dabbling with. That's one thing. But just, you know what I heard about so-and-so? I had a truck driver tell me just Thursday, I believe it was, Thursday or Friday. And he just started on and on and on and on. And I'm like, none of this has any bearing on me. But you couldn't get him to hardly be quiet. Gossip is usually driven by negative motives. And this was an idea I had never really thought of. It is a tool of evil the devil uses to get at people who he's having a hard time destroying any other way.
Ooh.
And I thought, man, that hits hard.
Yes.
If you're on the receiving end of gossip, you need to guard your tongue. Because it's easy to give the other person your permission to continue tearing the victim to shreds. I know you've all seen it happen where somebody's wanting to gossip so bad and somebody else is just like, hey, that's not my deal. And they sit there frustrated because they want to tell you. They want to continue, and now you just made them feel uncomfortable.
They should feel uncomfortable.
They should. And the thing with gossip is, why are you doing the listening, or why are you doing the speaking?
Well, Josh, there's a little joke I've heard that said where someone was gossiping and the other person said, tell me more, and said, I've already told you more than what I knew.
That's a lot of truth. And a lot of people, it goes to guessing and
Yeah.
surmising and jumping to conclusions. And I'll just give you an instance. And this wasn't really gossip, but this is how fast things can change. Is we're working down in almost Pocahontas, and one of the types of wood is supposed to be hauled to West Plains. We can take it up here in Mountain View, but we're way ahead, and we're trying to keep the loads balanced out between the two mills. So the boss got a hold of me and said, hey, all the loads have to go to West Plains for the next couple of weeks until we get our averages balanced out. Well, trucks went to rolling in Monday morning, just one right after the other, and I was trying to remember to tell them all, hey, this is where you need to go here, you need to go there. And I forgot the one truck driver, I think. I'm not sure if I told him or not. Well, he ended up bringing the load to Mountain View because it's easier haul. First truck driver got back, he's like, man, the boss was mad. Man, he tore into him and told him, and he said that you hadn't told him, and the boss said, yes, he did. I know he did. And it was just on and on. Well, I was feeling bad. That truck driver come back for a second load, and I just shut the loader off and got out and said, dude, I owe you an apology. I think I may have forgot to tell you. And he's like, well, what are you talking about? I said, I got you chewed out for something that I should have been the one getting chewed out instead of you, because I probably forgot to tell you. He said, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, I never even seen the boss. And I said, well, they told me he jumped all over you with both feet. And he's like, no, but I guess I know I need to go to West Plains now. But by the time it had went through the yard guy, to one driver, to another driver, to out to me.
You were in trouble.
Oh, I mean, it was,
Yeah.
and that's how quick. And I was like, man, I mean, there's no reason why this guy should have got chewed out if he did. Well, yeah, and that's how quick.
Yes.
And all this took 2 hours. 2 hours of time. It went from, I messed up and didn't tell him, to he had just got tore up one side and down the other. So when you hear things that are, these guys were just, it's 100% fact. There wasn't no, well, maybe or nothing. And that's how careful you have to be repeating what you hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh, that little game that you played when you was a kid.
Telephone?
And you, by the time it got to the last person, wasn't anything close to the message that was at the beginning. That's how fast gossip can be.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And we think it's silly, but it happens in everyday life. And I didn't think I had enough to keep going, and now I'm just going to read what I've got. Try not to speak on it too much. The thing with gossip is, why are you doing the listening or the speaking? Is it to actually help? Do you actually think that you're trying to help somebody? A good rule is, if no one in the conversation is in a position to address the issue that is being discussed, it should not be discussed. The key is, don't say anything behind someone's back you wouldn't say to their face, which I know some people, they got a little more spine than others. Some people say some pretty rough things to your face, but the thing is we need to learn to mind our own business and to be trustworthy. Proverbs 20:19, a slanderer reveals secrets, therefore do not associate with them. Ephesians 4:29 through 32. I'm not going to take the time to read it because I'm already ran over. But think before you speak. Is it kind, true, and necessary? And it's okay to be slow to respond. It doesn't show that you're slow-witted and you can't keep up. It shows you're actually thinking about what you're going to say before you say it. The thing is anything that God has created, Satan has tried to corrupt. Speech can be one of the most beautiful and powerful forces when used in God's will. People are actually brought to heaven by speech. As in, how will they know the gospel unless someone preaches to them? Granted, it's not the preaching that saves them, but without them hearing the message, how would they know the answer?
Yes. How will they know without a preacher, the Bible says?
Yeah, it says, how will they know unless someone
But
speaks, and how will someone speak unless they are
you're
sent?
talking about us per se, saying things about somebody else, but just as importantly, what we speak on ourselves and about ourselves, that's as important as not speaking the right things about somebody else, because we can actually curse ourselves or bless ourselves with our own tongue, and we need to be paying attention to what we're doing.
Well, that was like last Sunday. I found that deal where they said, say it out loud because your mind will hear it and accept it as a reliable source.
Yeah.
In contrast, so we can speak to someone and lead them to Christ. In contrast, if the words you say about somebody is what drives them away and dooms them, you will be held responsible. You are accountable for them.
Word says so.
The thing is our voice was given to us by God to praise Him and to sing to Him and to lift others up, to edify, to exhort, and to bless.
Yes.
And a lot of times we don't stop to realize what we're saying when we're saying it, and we don't realize the power of our voice. And we need to be careful. As Christians, our voice, our words need to line up with our walk.
Yes.
I'll turn it back over.